This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in North Carolina. I'm here with Dynamic Change Inc. Since 2001, they've been helping leaders develop the self-awareness, self-mastery, and interpersonal skills that enable sustainable, high performance, and high functioning teams. I am joined with Peter Metzner, who is the coach, facilitator, as well as keynote speaker. Thanks so much for joining us here today, Peter.
Great. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Gary.
Let's start off a little bit about yourself. You were formerly educated at the University of Georgia. You have past experience as an instructor of life coach training as well as interpersonal psychology. With People Maps, you have trained in universities, hospitals, and businesses for over 2 decades. You've been really on the cutting edge of leadership, life coaching, and team development programs. Share with me a little bit how this got started for you.
Okay, great. So I guess the short answer is a midlife crisis. And what that means is I was in the corporate world for a number of years, about 17 or 18. And for me, the midlife crisis was I climbed a ladder and realized I put it against the wrong wall. And I had to really reinvent myself. And I realized my passion was psychology, human growth potential. That was what my first graduate degree was in. And through a coach and numerous workshops and as well as mentors, I reinvented myself and decided at that time, one, to organize my life around my signature strengths, and then two, to work in the human growth potential movement and to do it in a very positive way. So at this time, coaching was in its infancy and positive psychology was just gathering steam. And so putting it all together, I felt I had a real niche and there was a real need to do the work that I do.
I mean, you're really a product of success. You're a product really of coaching within itself. You found out you were somewhere you didn't want to be and you changed that. If we are to thrive, we must embrace change. Yet, newly formed leadership, new management, new teams, it can be challenging to build while resolving conflict. Why is what you provide today maybe more in need today than ever before?
Well, gosh, we're going through an inflection point right now. We're going through major changes where we have to rethink who we are, how we do business, and with the pandemic, the great resignation, the baby boomers aging out, we need to have really not only trusting, collaborative, high-performing teams, but we need to be agile and nimble in addressing some of the significant challenges that we face, whether it be a hospital, an organization, nonprofit. And so the work that I do is really helping people become more self-aware, aware of each other, and better able to align to a vision so that they can best execute and meet the needs of the organization and the betterment of society. That's the hope anyway.
Definitely in need today. I mean, it should be a bumper sticker. Conflict happens, but excessive conflict that stops people from staying focused, poor communications resulting in careless mistakes, persistent negativity that has really no basis. Can this chronic conflict be reduced with proper training, and is that really where you come in?
It can. And I think what you're describing is a lack of awareness for many. And with the great resignation, even before the pandemic, the Gallup poll found when they surveyed 1 million people, 4 out of 5, when they were asked, why did you leave your last job? 800,000, 4 out of 5 said, I didn't leave my job, I left my boss. And so that's a leadership issue, turnover. And now with the pandemic, there are other reasons as well, as the incivility, the stress, not feeling valued, not feeling like we're being developed. And so these are all things the upcoming generations need. And the Gallup poll also reflects that. People need to feel that they matter. What they do matters, that people care about them and their development. And when there is a nurturing, positive, collaborative environment, if I may, it actually has been shown to change our biochemistry. Not only are we happier, but it boosts our levels of serotonin, the neurotransmitter for mood. And results are byproduct, but they're very powerful. And if there's a incivility, a lack of respect, bullying, not only do people leave, but the ones that stay often get shut down. So turnover. And all of this is affected by behavior that can be easily addressed with self-awareness and some skills in communication as well as emotional intelligence work.
I agree. We don't walk away from companies or the work. We walk away from a boss that we're not working with. Teams not working well together. Inexperienced or unaware leadership, low morale, lack of trust. Are these all too common in many organizations today? And are these business drivers not being adequately addressed? Yet they probably need to be.
Well, I think what you've just highlighted is my job security. So I have a lot of job security. I laugh, but when companies are suffering from, let's say, an unaware boss or colleagues that are in civil, or they just don't feel like they're being developed, that's a real problem. So there is a universal need. And the good news is it's not rocket science. It can really be addressed. And I think there's a universal need that we all have, and that is to be successful and to have good relationships. And when we have good relationships and we're aligned to our strengths, our values, and are meeting the needs of the organization, or let's say society in general, it unleashes such a positive energy and so much of our potential.
I mean, they say it is lonely at the top. Today's executive has experienced midlife crisis, like you have in the past. How can we avoid executive derailment, keep our career, and more importantly, our passion on track, and continue to be fulfilled?
Yeah, I think one of the issues around executive derailment is oftentimes the higher up a person goes in an organization, the less feedback that they get. And so it's really important when you think about accountability, it not only needs to be downward, it needs to be lateral, it needs to be upwards as well. And sometimes, unfortunately, the first time an executive really does get really hard hitting feedback is when they're asked for me to come in and do a 360 feedback process to really survey the impact of their leadership style. But when there's enough trust, and people really genuinely get along and they can engage in conflict, the feedback should be upward, lateral, as well as downward. And for many executives over the last 20 years, they are coming from good intention. They do come from their heart. It's just really unawareness. And these things can be addressed. And ideally, I shouldn't have to do 360 feedback. But
Wow. So feedback really going both ways is imperative. One of the ways that you provide leadership training and high performing teams is with People Map workshops. Is this a proven
Yes.
program that companies have found works in the way people relate to each other and work together? Tell me a little bit about that.
certainly. One psychologist that I like a lot, a Jungian analyst, he found that the prevailing source of conflict between people is simple differences in their typologies. So I use People Map as a baseline. It's a 4 quadrant assessment. Not many people know about it. So if a company is tied to the DISC, I'm certified in that as well, or the Myers-Briggs. There's one humanity. There's a variety of personality profile or personality assessments. But the idea is when we can't know ourselves unless we know others, but we can't know others unless we know ourselves. So when we work with personality in a very positive way, people get a sense, they understand how I lead, how I communicate, and we can also see that my signature strengths, if they're overused, can become my biggest liabilities. And Aristotle even found that the things that we may be lacking can also get us in trouble. So it can give us a really great insight as to how to use our strengths optimally and what learned behaviors can actually enhance our particular leadership preferences.
Know thyself, it still works in any environment. Not only does change happen, you actually prove that change works. Why does your approach go far beyond the typical change management programs? I mean, this isn't your traditional goal setting or strategic planning activities. Explain to me why this is a little bit different than maybe what folks are used to.
Well, I think with coaching, we don't have the answer, the client has the answers. And so through a series of exercises, insightful, open-ended questions, it's been shown, and this goes all the way back to Carl Rogers, who was a brilliant therapist, that he found for behavior change to work, people have to get it inside. So when I do programs or coaching, it's experiential, and people are guided through exercises to really get to that self-discovery of how their behavior impacts others, and then through group work, training each other on how to bring out the best. So the idea is we all have a genius inside, and we have the answers. Therapists would say that as well, but with coaching too, our client is whole, is complete, and has the answers. And through exercises, assessments, and various tools to develop greater, let's say, emotional intelligence, it really helps elevate a person's capacity to play larger or to live larger.
I mean, each organization and each person in that company is unique. Do we all respond differently to change? And how does the change grid help us diagnose and maybe gauge kind of where we're at?
Okay, great question. So I would say the first part of that is that we all have our different personality profiles. There are some that are change agents. They would be the expressive, big picture, right-brained, and all possibilities. And then there are some that are analytical, very detailed, thorough, meticulous, left-brained. And then you have those that are relationship oriented, and some of those that are really driven. And so each personality goes about change in a different way. The idea is, how do you operationalize a huge idea and make it happen? And that's where you need to know who would be the appropriate person to either operationalize change, and who are the visionaries, and how do we get them to really align and work together. So that's really key. So that's the first thing to really recognize. When we have, let's say, a circle of brilliance, when people trust each other, accept each other, recognize each other's strengths, and are mindful how they impact each other and how they potentially overuse their strengths, you have the template now to get into meaningful change. Now, what I do with the change grid, which is also a brilliant exercise, it's a very specific activity management program where people can self-report. Here's my ability on a scale of, let's say, 1 to 12. Here's my perceived challenge on a scale of 1 to 12, and then be able to see where they are. And for instance, if a person's perceived challenge is much greater than their perceived ability or capacity, the change isn't going to happen. Or if a team feels that way, it's not going to happen. So this is a tool now to help people become aligned to, here's what I need to do to grow my ability so that I can meet the appropriate challenges. It's a tool of conversation.
Wow, sounds like a fantastic model that you put forth for folks. Building optimal and productive teams obviously is your specialty. What about one-on-one coaching for just the executives or the leaders with the use of technology, be it phone or video messaging? Can this be really provided to anyone from really anywhere?
Yes, it really can. And during the pandemic, one of the first things I did was get a Zoom account myself. And I found after the initial month or so that I got busier than ever. And what it's done is eliminated geographic boundaries. So I'm also a faculty member for the Institute for Life Coach Training. And we have students from Alaska, from Europe, from Spain, all over the United States in real time. And I find with coaching as well that I can work with someone really anywhere as long as there's a good internet connection or a good Zoom connection, if I may. And so it's really opened it up. And with Zoom, we can share documents. And I've even done virtual teamwork, although in person you can't beat, but during the pandemic, that worked as well.
Great. Before we let you go, most of my viewers out there are familiar with coaching. Yet for myself, I have never heard of dream work in coaching. How can dreams allow for maybe a deeper and more meaningful connection in our waking hours? Touch on that before you go.
I'm so glad you asked that. That's one of my interests, and I actually have been teaching classes on dreams for coaching and presented at one of the regional conferences on how to use dreams in coaching. So very succinctly, what I will say, this goes all the way back to Carl Jung. He believed that in dreams we awaken to who we are, that what we dream at night, we go to a world at night, 8 hours, almost a third of our lives. And in that time, the dreams tell us what we need to know but don't know in our waking life. And inventions like the sewing machine, the theory of relativity, Paul McCartney's song, Let It Be, Mother Mary comes to me speaking words of wisdom. Well, Mother Mary was his deceased mother who came to him in a dream and said, let it be. So the arts, the sciences have all come through dreams, and our dreams will tell us what we need to know but don't know in our waking life. And it can be an incredible tool for creativity, for coaching, or just to really get a snapshot of what we need to address. And I feel like part of my role as a coach in dream work is to take it so that for people to realize we all need to be connected to our dreams, and that it isn't just something you would bring to an analyst.
That is exciting. That was one of the things that really made me gravitate towards your story. Exploring dreams and their meaning. Can this be done in workshops as well as one-on-one? And really, can all that you offer be discussed in a consultation? Is that really the starting point for folks to touch up with you that way?
Absolutely. So whenever I do an intake, I want to find out what a person's situation is, the outcomes they'd like, and what are some of the blocks, and then to see these are the things that we'll work with. A lot of times with dreams, if somebody has a dream and says, I'm open to dreams, and they're willing to do it, we can accelerate the process when they do share their dreams. Um, I do believe, and this goes along with many psychologists and experts who have worked with dreams, is that you are the expert on your dreams. I wouldn't want to tell you the meaning of your dreams, but I could say, well, if this were a metaphor of your life, what comes up for you? Or if this were my dream, I could say, this is what comes up for me. So you're the expert, and what I could do is just we could have put that in the center and see what comes up for us. But I do believe that when we do stay connected to our dreams, it can unleash an amazing amount of creativity and clarity on erroneous beliefs. It's kind of like the reins of a horse. They'll tell us if we're on the right track or wrong track. And it's so powerful that it can really cut to the chase of what the person needs, even though they're maybe unaware of it in their conscious life.
And we see dreams all the way back in the biblical days. Obviously, there's something to it. That fascinates me. In the past, you have helped thousands in multiple industries. As we attempt to stay sane in this ever-changing world, what does the future hold for you? Are there new projects on the horizon, and do you still enjoy what you do?
Yeah, I love what I do, and I feel like this is my vocation, this is my gift, and it's very rewarding when, let's say, I work with someone who's unaware and all of a sudden becomes aware, becomes more humane and more of a full person. It affects their team, their company, their families, and the next generation as well. So that's really rewarding. So at this point in my life, I decided after age 60, I'm no longer aging, I'm saging. And part of that process is to give back. And I'm in the process of really collecting my thoughts and putting it into a book and becoming sane in an insane world, to really identify what does it truly look like to be sane, to be whole, to be full, and to be living a life that's meaningful and purposeful. And get away from this thing that success is just material wealth, material goods, but to really get a sense, how do we do it right, and how do we each create islands of sanity with all of the mayhem and the challenges that are around us. So that's the project I want to work on, and it's going to continue on.
We look forward to that book coming out. We might have to sit down with you again and go into more detail on that. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is his website. On the website, you can see all the service they provide there. The site is full of resources, from articles to sample talks that he provides as a keynote speaker. And regardless of what your profile may be, check out the assessment tools. There's a tab right there where you can really get started on the process. Contact him right there on the website for a free 30-minute consultation. In this ever-changing world, change is inevitable. So why not make it dynamic change? With Peter Metzner, this is Gary Atencio with CNTV. And if you don't know, now you know.